About 6 years ago, I asked one of my professors from graduate school to come to Oakland University to give a talk. And he talked about Latin American development. His specialty is Brazil, and he is the foremost economist on Brazil, and he has pretty much trained the majority of the good economists in Brazil. Suffice it to say that I posted this lecture in the summer of last year because I was teaching an international economics class, and we had the lecture sitting around on a DVD and no one ever looked at it. And I thought, this might benefit from being put in the public space. So it was out there for many months. My students in the class in the summer, well, it was actually in May, watched it, so it got about 20 or 25 hits. And then it went back to being dormant, but it is in the public space. And then something interesting happened in September. The video link just got a lot of views. So you'll notice that in the semester when I taught the class, this is the beginning of spring, the lecture was viewed about 30 times on one day, and the pattern is seen here. It spiked because I told the students they had to watch it and then comment on it. So that's the day that we watched it in class. They watched it the night before. And then it went back to being dormant. Then something pretty dramatic happened. Around the middle of September, I observed that the video got as many as 80 hits per day for a period of time. And then it went back down to about 5 or 6. Now, in November, it's gone back to being dormant. But that was interesting. So I felt that somebody found the video, happened on it because it was in the public space, not being viewed, and that person posted it somewhere on their Facebook page or in some way that alerted people to the fact that this video of Latin American development existed. And because this person has a lot of followers, the thing got viewed a lot, and you see what the pattern looked like. It's no longer being viewed. It's gone back to the dormancy phase. So it made me think that if content gets posted by someone who's popular, you're going to see a big spike in the number of views. If I were to pretend that this was when the video was posted, you get that big spike, and then you get a long tail. It trails off. And I would think most videos have that pattern when you view them. So that was the Warner Bear lecture. And what I'll do is play a little bit of it just so that the listener can hear what it sounded like.
After the Second World War, many Latin American countries chose the policy of what came to be known as import substitution industrialization as their strategies for economic development. This was really a strategy which you could call anti-globalization, because basically what the Latin American countries wanted to do, especially the larger Latin American countries, they wanted to diversify their economies. They came out of the 19th century and into the 20th century in a globalized world, a different type of globalized world than what we have today. The second half of the 19th century was a century of tremendous expansion of international trade. International trade in which Latin America and many other, what we call today, third world countries were involved, and in which they participated as exporters of what we call primary goods, namely minerals and food products.
After seeing the pattern for the data on the Bear lecture, the viewership pattern, I decided to go back and look at the viewership for the Lewis model lecture that I did, and over the same period, so I could do a comparison between the Bear views and the Lewis views, as I call them. One of the things I thought is that because people would come to my YouTube channel to watch the Bear lecture, that perhaps YouTube will signal to them on the side where it shows you other video content, something else by this individual who posted the Bear lecture. And therefore, I expected to see that my Lewis lecture would get more hits while people were viewing the Bear lecture. It's kind of like you wander into a store and you see one product, and because you're in that store that you came to look for a particular product, you end up looking at products that are next to it. And those might also get purchased because in your mind you're figuring, okay, well, since I'm here, this other thing might interest me and I don't need to go elsewhere, so you start shopping around within that store. My concern with the data being that choppy and being just hard to understand caused me to smooth the data. So I did a 30-day moving average. So I'm saying on a given day, what were the number of views for the 29 days prior to that day and that day for that 30-day period. And every day, I'm adding one more new day and dropping the first day. So it's kind of like I'm giving you a window, and the window keeps moving, and I'm aggregating the views in that window. And that was to smooth out the pattern of the viewership. So I went back to 2013 to see what the pattern looked like from October to December. So I call this the fall semester effect, but obviously starting at October 20th, because when I thought of the project, I said, let me do 365 days, starting at October 20th, 2013 to October 20th, 2014, which is the day that I thought about the idea, well, maybe I should compare these data. So I call this the fall 2013 effect, and you'll notice that there is a peaking and a troughing. The troughing is occurring during the semester. So around November 24th. So there's a troughing that occurred, and then it picked up again. So I'm going to say this is when the topic was taught in many schools, and then other topics were being taught, and then coming up to final exam week, people start to watch the lecture again because the topic is included on their final exam. In this particular panel, I lengthened the period from October to December to October to March. And what I saw, again, we had the October to December effect. So when I lengthened the December effect, I got more of the spiking. So you can see final exam week, there's a peaking. So here's when the topic is being taught in October. Here's when it shows up on a final exam, a smaller peak, because in some universities, some professors will not do cumulative finals. Therefore, you would expect that if the topic is not being tested on the final exam, fewer people will go searching for it. And obviously, after the exams, we go back into the trough, and then we start to come out of the trough the end of January. So we're saying, like in the fall semester, there's peaking. We're getting some peaking occurring. So the trend is picking up. People are starting to look at the topic. Different professors are teaching the topic in different weeks, but you can see that around the end of February, well, the views are higher, suggesting that the topic is more widely being taught at that point in time. Here's the summer effect. People are not watching it as much. If we are in summer, a course like this one will not generally be offered in the summer because it's a low enrollment course, and you should not expect that schools will offer low enrollment courses in the summer because they're trying to make as much money as possible, so they want classes that will fill as opposed to classes with 5 to 10 students. So the viewership went down, and then by the time we got back to the semester, September, you can see the pattern picking up again. This is my prize so far in terms of analyzing the data. Again, it's a 30-day moving average, and starting October 2013 to October 2014, you'll see the 2 peaks we discussed in the fall semester. So if I can call that the fall semester right there, you got the 2 peaks when the topic is being taught and when it's being tested on the final exam. Then the second semester, or the spring semester or winter, depending on what universities call it, will end around May in many places. And again, you see 2 peaks occurring. Then we get the troughing in summer 2014, and then by October we're back at a peak. Notice that the peak is almost as high as during the period in May and the period in March, and you see that there's a lift beyond what was happening in the fall of 2013. So it could be that more people discovered the lecture in the spring semester. Suppose I call these 2 peaks averaging around 300 views in my moving average. Here, the peaks are averaging at 360 views. So that's a 20% lift in terms of the demand for the video. And by the end of this semester, I will have data to see if I get the same peaking in the fall semester of 2014. The peak when the topic is being taught and tested in a midterm, and another peak when it's showing up on a final exam. People are watching on average about 4 to 5 minutes of the video. Average number of minutes. The chart. Sometimes the chart just helps people to see things faster than studying the numbers. So one would say that given that someone has actually clicked on the video, that the average engagement is higher in the December period, final exam time. People who are looking at it will look at it a little longer in the December final exam time than in the midterm period. Individuals who are looking at it at the midterm period, some of those are going to drop the class. And therefore, by the time you get the final exam, you have the serious students. So that could explain why you have a little increase in the length of watching the video. There's also the decay effect, that if the topic is taught earlier, by the time people are going back to revise for the final exam, they've kind of forgotten some of what they heard, and they just will endure listening to somebody explain a little bit things that they've forgot. The January period shows that people are not as engaged. The topic is not yet being taught, but people are still out there finding it. And then here we get the engagement again higher by the end of April. Then we have the summer effect. People are nibbling, they're grazing, they're coming across the video, they're not in school necessarily. So you have a different population looking for the content, surfing, hoping to find something interesting. And then September we get more engagement. Maybe the topic is being taught in some institutions, and the individuals who are watching are a little more engaged than in the summer when it's not being taught.